Jane Welsh here with stories from our archives, a Dance in Vancouver profile series celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Vancouver Ballet Society. Today's subject is Josephine Slater, born in 1915 and who died in 1994. Dancer, choreographer, mega teacher, Jo Slater made a giant contribution to dance in BC. Her influences and her personal circle included history makers, Sir Anton Dolan, Ted Shawn, known as the father of modern dance, and Joseph Pilates, whose technique is used by many Vancouver artists today. An advanced level RAD member, Josephine had top drawer credits to teach ballet and modern dance techniques. She shaped thousands of dancers and hundreds of teachers, and she was a founding member of the Vancouver Ballet Society. These striking photos of Jo, as she was known to her friends, are from the 20s to the 50s. Today, memories of her are from her students from the 70s and 80s, and for them she will always be Miss Slater, a petite elderly woman of carriage and presence, who maintained formalities, though some students suspected her of bohemian tendencies. Her dramatic low voice and her look, red lips, black brows, pale makeup, and a shellacked jet black bob with a hairnet. A little goth maybe, and her uninhibited chain smoking. A character, they say. They describe her house, an Edwardian mansion surrounded by rose gardens, as a mysterious place, almost mystic. Curiously though, none were aware that she was married to the artist in the studio in the basement. The front room was her main teaching studio. In summer, the odd cat or the smell of roses might drift through the open windows. In winter, heating was cast iron radiators. Burn your bum if you happen to lean on them. Dressing rooms downstairs were for seniors. Younger students waiting for class sat quietly on ornately carved wooden benches in the reception area, where there was a spider-web leaded glass window. One didn't enter Miss Slater's studio until you were invited. As the door opened, you pulled up smartly for this tiny, formidable presence in her dance gear. White t-shirt, pink tights, and a black girdle panties, like you see in the old black and white movies. A stick in one hand to correct and tap tempo, and a cigarette in the other, unless it was smouldering in her Art Deco holder in the studio. Sure, she used old teaching methods, a stick, a firm yank on the tights, a knuckle in the back, but never abusively. And this was the norm at this time, with the idea that body memory was better than head memory. A license to abuse for some, but never for her. Her students emphasized that Miss Slater was always fair, never favored the rich, incorruptible in a time when that was not the norm, and a kindly soul, gentle with her rescued cats and with her students, inspiring them emotionally as well as teaching them technically. A Slater girl's first point shoe fitting was called going behind the sapphire curtain, an elevated phrase for the blue velvet curtain on the shoe closet into a mystic portal. Here's how one remembered it. Having her attention all to myself, being fitted by her for Freed of London point shoes, I felt amazingly special. When she handed me the box containing my shoes, I thought I'd burst. And then she gave me a tiny metal ballet slipper to put on a charm bracelet. No girl forgets a moment like that. I love her for it still. Josephine Slater was born in 1915 in New Westminster. Her parents were English immigrants, her father a civil engineer, her mother an accomplished pianist. As children, Jo and her sister Kitty performed with the Royal City Players troupe. At 15, Jo was teaching in the family living room, her mother at the Ivories, but it wasn't for need, even though the Depression had begun. Indeed, her father bought and moved the family into an Edwardian mansion, 7,000 square feet with rose gardens, so Jo could expand. She taught kids in the afternoons and adults ballroom dancing in the evenings for 25 cents a head. There's a place in heaven for a father like that. Jo had trained for 3 summers in San Francisco with Adolf Baum, who had partnered Pavlova, until 1939 when she went to Jacob's Pillow in Massachusetts, then as now a major summer dance festival, and there she found her groove. She became a regular and bonded with Anton Dolan, Ted Shawn, Alexandra Danilova, Bronislava Nijinská, and Joseph Pilates, and was soon teaching Pilates and Ted Shawn techniques in Vancouver. In 1946, Vancouver celebrated its Diamond Jubilee with a historical theatrical in Stanley Park. Jo had suggested Wilbur McCormack, a Ted Shawn protege, to come as choreographer. Jo also coordinated the participation of local dance schools and took responsibility for the Indian section of the show in consultation with an organization representing the Indigenous people of BC. An interesting story uncovered by Marie Clements for her 2010 piece, The Road Forward, choreography by Michael Greyeyes of the National Ballet of Canada. We'd all like to know more about the 1946 intercultural collaboration. Oh, to find rehearsal notes hidden away somewhere. Jo's next project in late 1946 was a reboot of Pro Rec, a popular Depression-era fitness program for the unemployed, eventually open to all. Jo was hired to update and train teachers, and BC got a public fitness program with the latest techniques of Pilates and Ted Shawn. The Pro Rec program ran successfully until 1953, when the federal government withdrew funding amid accusations of socialism. Yes, really. McCarthy era. The National Film Board made a film called The Un-Canadians, and it's well worth watching. Down in Jacob's Pillow, Ted Shawn had burned out due to the financial stress of maintaining Jacob's Pillow during the war years and training ex-servicemen. Jo suggested he come to the mansion for some R&R. Kitty, her sister, had been the nurse at Jacob's Pillow, and his personal assistant, Virginia Butterfield, was also here. They were all buddies. Spring 1947 saw Ted Shawn giving classes and lectures at the mansion in New Westminster. What a benefit for Jo's students. What an opportunity. Meanwhile, in ballet, the Royal Academy of Dance in London had sent Myra McBurney out to Canada in 1946. She later moved to Vancouver. In 1948, Jo had her RAD teaching certification. Her school offered full RAD curriculum in addition to contemporary. She trained teachers for the dance schools that were springing up, and her previous student, Ellen Andrews, became her long-term business partner. Norbert Vasek was a troubled young dance maker when he came through Jo's port. Jo told him, "What you're doing in your head is wonderful, but you've got to train your body to express it," and sent him on to Ted Shawn, with whose help he embarked on a successful career, later crediting Jo for guidance at a make-or-break time in his life. Norbert was a force to reckon with in dance in Vancouver in the 60s. He choreographed and lectured for many Vancouver Ballet Society showcases and seminars. Josephine Slater was a force in BC dance for 63 years. She taught 5 classes a day, 6 days a week, until 2 years before her death. People still spoke of her grace and elegant placement and her house of dance. By then, generations had passed under the trellis of English tea roses. Josephine Slater died in 1994. This is Jane Welsh for Vancouver Ballet Society with stories from our archives. Thank you for watching.